The Lakers just signed Christian Wood, and depending on where you're looking, you'll find some mixed opinions. I get it, he's been passed around, there are definitely some question marks regarding his defense and intangibles, but what I think gets lost in these discussions is just how uniquely talented of an offensive big he is, and what that means for them. If we take a look at every team's three-point shooting over last season, just in simple terms of volume and efficiency, you'll notice that the Lakers were one of the very worst in both measures, ranking 26th in attempts and 24th in percentage. Of course, they drastically changed their roster and made a push to the Western Conference Finals, so if we instead look at the playoffs, well, we see a similar signal, among the bottom 3 in volume and the bottom 6 in accuracy. This is where Christian Wood makes an immediate big impact, as he's one of the best shooting bigs in the NBA. Over the last 3 years, Wood's taken just under 8 3-pointers every 100 possessions, and hit 38% of them. We're talking about a large sample of this guy being a great 3-point shooter. It's not like these are all easy, conceded looks either. Although he doesn't have much self-creation, there's some serious off-ball versatility. For one, he can shoot from anywhere on the floor, whether that's in either corner, deep on the wing, above the break, or from extended range, meaning that positionally, he's a threat to score from beyond the arc no matter how the offense is set up. A large chunk of his opportunities come in the pick and pop, which I think really unlocks LeBron's game as he can punish more paint-oriented coverages. Brook Lopez is going to come up in a high drop with the goal of preventing Luka's dribble penetration, but with that he's forced to leave Wood all alone on the wing as he steps into an automatic 3. This time you're going to see New Orleans look to ice the pick and roll, meaning Dyson Daniels turns his body to force the ball baseline, with Valanciunas positioning himself to take away the middle of the floor. Wood just floats back to the wing, and again it's a high percentage look from above the break. The problem here is that he's not someone the defense can leave open. If they pick their poison and he's not the choice, he'll punish them. Last season he hit about 42.5% of his wide open threes. Just remarkably efficient offense. But because he's also 6'10" with a 7'3" wingspan, that high release point allows him to shoot over the top of contests. When he gets the ball in the corner, Bruno Fernando's right in his grill, but without getting a hand up, it's like he's not even there. Here's one where he's spotted up on the wing, and Kevin Durant closes out hard with those long arms of his own, yet still it just isn't enough to bother the shot. The Lakers' offense is ran through names like LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves, and D'Angelo Russell, guys who run a lot of spread pick and roll, isolation ball, or look to get out in transition. And in that sort of environment, the ability to knock down threes off the catch is essential. Last season though, they didn't really have too much of that. When looking at every player to attempt at least 50 3-pointers off the catch, 2 names immediately stand out. D'Lo was a flamethrower in his 17 games, while Troy Brown Jr. took considerably more than anyone else at a respectable 39% clip. Only one guy attempted at least 150 while making 40% of them, and that was of course Austin Reeves. Now if we add Christian Wood to the chart, you'll notice that he stands alone, attempting 220 and making nearly 42% of them. This is a huge addition. And this means a lot for spacing because numbers like these are enough to earn respect from the defense. Here's one of those pick and pops, and when Luka hesitates off the screen, Miles Turner makes an effort to recover to Wood on the perimeter, clearing the lane for a real easy drive and finish. Because he's a big, it's often rim protectors that he's pulling away from the basket. It's subtle, but Jared Allen defending the wing one pass away instead of one of the corners means he can't rotate down to the cup, and whether it's Luka or LeBron James, that makes a pretty big difference. Here's another example. Nick Claxton's forced to pick up Wood out on the perimeter because of that shooting, which clears the lane for a Luka post-up, and the result is a one-on-one down low that leads to a potential 3-point play. This time he's again spotted up one pass away on the wing, and Luka's gonna look to pass and cut. The problem here for the Knicks is that Mitchell Robinson is forced to close out while Luka dives down the middle, meaning their last line of defense is Julius Randle. Wood will almost always make the right extra pass after drawing this sort of shooting gravity. Two go to the ball in a pick and pop, which forces Eric Gordon to rotate up from the corner, and just one more pass leaves Reggie Bullock with an easy 3 points. Here it is again. Wood relocates to the wing to open up the floor, which draws a rotation from Gordon, and he makes a pretty high level read, hitting Bullock on a cut through a pretty tight window. It's not just extra passing that he'll do off the catch, he can also put the ball down and attack closeouts himself. Lopez comes up just a touch too high, and again there's no rim protector waiting for him down low. His length can be really deadly in these spots. In just one dribble from the 3-point line, he blows by his man and gallops his way into a dunk. This time it's Josh Hart who closes out, but because he's a bit smaller and more agile, he's able to slide his feet and close off Wood's initial attack. No problem though, as the big man will just use his height advantage to float it over the top. And when he beats the closeout, then draws help down low, he's even capable of dumping it off to a teammate, serving as either a play finisher or connector. When slashing to the rim off the dribble, it's not like he has an advanced handle by any means, but he'll weaponize his length well, and I think it gets understated how gifted of an athlete he is. His first step is sharp, and he's a quick leaper off of 2 feet. When a defender slides in front of him, he usually looks to drop the shoulder and create through the use of contact, which has its benefits and its drawbacks. For one, he's a very capable finisher through contact, and this helps him generate some separation before the release. Secondly, it helps him get to the free throw line at a pretty high rate. Last season he attempted about 6 free throws every 75 possessions, good for the 90th percentile among all players. And considering that the Lakers were first in the league in free throw attempts, that definitely bodes well. The downside to this style of driving is that he can pick up a decent amount of offensive fouls himself. You'll get these plays where it almost looks like he doesn't know which sport he's playing, just throwing all of his weight and a little stiff arm into his defender. I think because he sometimes relies on these shoulder bumps to generate space, when they don't, he can find himself in unfavorable situations, just forcing himself into non-existent opportunities. On top of that, he doesn't have very good vision when working down low, so even when there are passing outlets available, he usually can't capitalize. To overcompensate, I think he tends to settle in the mid-range just a little bit too consistently. Yes, Hayes is coming over to meet him, but I think with his length, he can take advantage of this space in a better way than just pulling up for a free throw line jumper. Here's another example. Burning KD on a closeout, and when he sees Payne waiting for him at the nail, instead of trying to drive through, he immediately picks up his dribble, stepping into a floater. Now, this isn't a big deal because he's shown to be more than capable of scoring from the mid-range, which is especially noticeable when he faces up for isolations. He's capable of shooting over just about any defender who stands in his way, but also has the first step and ball handling capabilities needed to drive from a standstill, ripping through to sneak by Giddey, and using some lengthy strides to get around help and above the rim for a finish. And he can even throw together some counters out of these drives. Franz is able to cut off the first step, so Wood instead spins back to the middle of the floor for a short fall-away jumper. As for his post game, it's a bit of a mixed bag of good and bad. For one, he's only about 220 pounds, which at his height means he's not sturdy at all. You'll get these possessions where he's rendered completely incapable of backing down much smaller defenders and will often settle for lower percentage looks over the top. With that said though, he'll also have possessions where it looks like he really knows how to use his body, initiating and playing through contact, slightly turning his body so that he can lead with those shoulder bumps on his way to the cup. Take this play for example. He's at a slightly diagonal angle so that his left shoulder is what's creating the contact, and that takes him all the way to the front of the rim, where he adjusts his shot in midair on an impressive bucket. This time, Dallas clears the side of the floor for him to isolate Derek White, and even though it seems awkward and off balance, he does punish the mismatch. Here's another one, this time under a little more control, and you'll notice that he uses the height advantage to just get as close as he can before making his scoring move over the top. This is what he's trying to do most of the time. Drew Holiday's essentially a brick wall with his feet planted, but he's only 6'5" with a 6'7" wingspan, so he really can't affect Wood's shot once it gets into motion. This time it's Booker who's switched onto him, and the same thing. He doesn't really need to back him down and throw him into the baseline when he's just as effective pushing it in from over the top. I don't think post-ups are a staple in his game or anything, but last season he marked 1.04 points per possession, which is pretty solid, and just the ability to punish switches or serve as another form of offense brings some more versatility in how the Lakers can attack different coverages. As for his playmaking when given the ball to attack, well, he's certainly not a high-level passer. I mentioned the tunnel vision, but when he sees a play unfold, he can make the read. He starts this one on the top of the key. Again, notice how he's pulling LA's center out of the paint, and that space leads to some easy offense at the rim. But then you'll get possessions like this, where Luka cuts, and he throws a lob that not even prime Blake Griffin could pull in. Wood actually does a fair share of his creation for himself and others in the open floor. I think the spread nature helps him as a decision maker, as he can see everything kind of fall into place, and he's actually got a decent array of passes he can go to. Here we've got a one-handed zinger that reaches Bullock in stride for 2. When nobody comes up to meet him, it's his length that becomes the problem. Those strides and that high release point give him virtually unlimited access to quality looks. He's a guy who can leak out, grab and go himself, and because the Lakers were number 3 in pace, with a roster filled with guys who like to get out and run, this is something that fits like a glove. Overall, he's not someone you want creating a ton of offense on the ball though, just in advantageous spots, or as a release valve when other outlets get closed off. He's got some isolation tools, but they aren't nearly efficient enough to serve as a primary form of offense, and when given a bunch of touches, he tends to turn the ball over. He's best utilized away from the ball, and I already talked about the shooting, but he's also a really good pick and roll big. His screening can be a bit questionable at times, and due to that weak lower body, he'll overcompensate by setting illegals. When it does land though, he'll roll hard, and he's a big target with great hands, meaning he can catch and finish pretty much anything thrown his way. Denver sends 2 to the ball with Aaron Gordon rotating down from the weak side, but he just simply isn't big enough to stop Wood from scoring. I also think his timing for slipping screens is really sharp, and he's agile enough to get downhill with speed. Smart's just a touch late getting over to him, and the result is a potential 3 points. Here's another one, handing it off to Luka and quickly slipping down the middle before going up top to finish a lob. I mentioned his great hands, and when paired with his length and quick vertical leaping, he's a big time lob threat. Eubanks does nearly everything right, but just can't match Wood's athleticism. Later in that same game, we saw it again. Luka places it where only Wood can get to it, and that's just high level pick and roll play. In addition to the athletic rolling, Wood sports a pretty elite short mid-range game, so if defenders prioritize the paint, he can burn them with short jumpers or floaters from inside the key. Last season, he shot about 57% in that 3 to 10 foot range, meaning that he's a legit threat to score very efficiently from all 3 levels when screening, which just brings so much versatility to the table. And when opposing defenses play in more aggressive coverages, sending multiple bodies at the ball, he's shown to be a strong enough decision maker to capitalize in the short roll. Gobert's up in a hedge, so Wood slips and hangs around the middle. After getting the ball, he first looks to the corner, but McDaniels slides down. Of course, it goes without saying that Rivers isn't exactly a big presence in the paint. This time, Detroit doubles Luka at nearly half court, so when Wood gets the ball, he's got a 4-on-3 advantage to attack. By driving, he draws the weak side help and creates a wide open lob. And on this one, the defense makes an effort to take away the opportunity for a drive by closing the space before Wood gets the ball, to which he counters with a sharp extra pass that leads to an open lay. According to NBA Court Optics, Wood set 10 ball screens a game for Luka last season, and the Mavs scored 1.21 points per possession. Of every player in the league with at least 2 possessions as the roll man per game, he was the most efficient at 1.44 points. Of course, this has a lot to do with Luka, but it's also his own scoring versatility and ability to punish different coverages. I think the fact that he can get above the rim on lobs, float around in the mid-range, pop to the 3, or capitalize on advantages in the short roll will pair perfectly with LeBron. Another thing is that he's one of only a handful of players in the NBA who can space the floor both vertically and traditionally, meaning you can use him as a spot-up shooter or in the dunker spot as someone to clean up and finish lobs down low. The main attribute you're getting with Wood is offensive flexibility. When it comes to plugging a big into the lineup to play next to other high-end talent, there's not really anything he can't do away from the ball. That's a big deal. It means you can play him at the 4 or the 5 next to AD, LeBron, Reeves, and you won't be getting any diminishing returns because he has that chameleon-like nature to his game and how he can adapt and continue to make an impact. Once you have that, everything else falls into place. And while I know there are other concerns, at that price, with this level of talent, I think the addition takes the Lakers offense to an entirely different level. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think of the signing. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.